Two new polls show President Trump continuing to trail Joe Biden nationally. The latest Quinnipiac University poll has Biden up 8 points, 49% to Trump's 41%. Biden holds sizable leads among black voters, women, white voters with a college degree, and Hispanics. Trump leads among men overall, white voters without a college degree. Biden also leads the president in the Q poll by 8 points among voters 65 and older. And a new Fox News poll has Biden's national lead over Trump at 12 points, 50 to 38%. The Fox News poll also notes that the president is underperforming his vote share among key voting groups he won in 2016, including white evangelicals by 23 points and rural voters 18 points.
You know, Jim Vandehei, there are a lot of numbers to look at. You can look at him losing 23 points off of white evangelicals, or his advantage among rural voters only being +9 right now. Two very bad numbers for him. Same thing with black voters, where black voters are. They were expecting a 15 to 20 point percentage of black voters just 2 months ago. That obviously seems like a distant dream right now. The number I looked at yesterday coming out of the Fox News poll that would be most concerning to me, where I own the Trump campaign, is Joe Biden's favorabilities. Joe Biden at 53%. Approval rating, 44% disapproval rating. He's +9. Now, we've been doing presidential elections for quite some time, and having any candidate up +9 at this point in a campaign is pretty shocking, especially if you look back and see what happened 4 years ago. And it's doubly difficult when Donald Trump has raised millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of of dollars from rich donors. And they've plowed that money into ads trying to damage Donald Trump. And at the same time, Trump even got impeached, trying to destroy Biden's reputation. And yet here we are, Biden still at 53%.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. The numbers suck for Donald Trump across the board, other than his base of working class white voters. Even the internal polling that he's looking at, even when they're trying to put it in the most favorable light, is bad. And so what they're trying to do, if you talk to them, like their theory of the case is he's got to jack up the vote of the working class whites. He thinks they can use Facebook, go into these rural communities, and that there's still a 4 to 5% hidden vote that they can somehow turn out. We did a poll that we're releasing today and tomorrow that looks at what his base thinks about the protests, what his base thinks about a lot of these debates that we're having. 77% of his base wants more force, more police force to quell these rallies, not less. 50% strongly oppose the rallies. 5% strongly support. So he's in sync with his base, and he thinks somehow he can squeeze out more working class white voters to win an election. But the reason that you were able to do your intro is that he feels like the victim. He feels like the victim of the courts, the victim of the staff, the victim of rallies, the victim of virus. And he's done this, and he's gone through these phases, which you guys talk a lot about. But I've never seen him more obsessed with his victimization on a sustained basis in the last 2 weeks. Every tweet, every meeting, every interview that he's done. Read those transcripts. It's striking.
And Shauna, you look at his main justification for getting elected to evangelicals and to conservatives. It's the Supreme Court. It's all I hear from my friends and my family members that still support Donald Trump. Yes, we don't like him, but the court. Yes, he's a bad human being, but the court. Yes, would never invite him to our house for dinner. He's so disgusting. He's a bad example for our children, but the court. And now this week, as we come to the end of the week, these same people are forced to face the fact that Donald Trump's first pick for the United States Supreme Court did more to advance the rights of a community that evangelicals have been pushing against for decades. I mean, this has been a remarkable week.
It has been. It's also been a remarkable week for the law. I mean, and as well as civil rights. I understand what they're getting at, and this whole running on the Supreme Court, running on the justice system, that did work in 2016. Putting out that list that President Trump did was masterful. It gave people a rallying cry, all the people that you're talking about, your family members, Joe. But just because you put someone who is constitutionally conservative on the Supreme Court doesn't mean they aren't going to look at the facts in front of them and decide what the law intended, as well as what is the role of the courts versus what is the role of Congress. This is all really complicated. Now, Donald Trump still has that one thing to run on. He's appointed 2 Supreme Court justices. He has remade the federal judiciary underneath the Supreme Court. That is as much, his flag to plant in the ground as it is Mitch McConnell's flag to plant in the ground. But what else does he have to run on? What else does your family say to you who is going to vote for him that they want out of him in a second term? He's actually kind of fulfilled that part. So maybe people are taking another look around. I also want to say, I was looking at that Fox News poll. You know what stood out to me? It was the question, and I'm looking at my notepad, do you think Donald Trump cares about people like you? And yes, 37%, no, 57%. And then don't know 6%. So there were 6% of them who were just like, I'm not sure if he cares about people like me. That's really striking to me. You want to believe, whether you agree politically with someone, that your president cares about you. Now, don't get me wrong. Biden is not above 50% in this poll for that particular question. But 37% is sad.
So when we had in Congress, when we had pollsters come in and try to explain why Bill Clinton defied gravity politically, Willie, they would always point to that question. Does he care about people like you? And Bill Clinton always fared better in that question than any Republican.